I think it's going to be really helpful to so many people. You mentioned getting credits back. Can you just really briefly, for someone who is in a jurisdiction that allows it and maybe did have some credits fall off due to this, what does that look like for them? Are people getting finding out all of a sudden that they actually are done with all the exams? I'm very interested to find out a little bit more about that.
Sure. So what we will do at NCARB is we are going to go back, because again, the score validity policy says, right, you get credit for the version you took and for the next one. So basically we get to go back to the very first ARE 4.0 exam ever delivered, which was in 2008. And that person had passed the division, but yet are not ARE complete. So it has since expired. We are going to basically give that candidate that score back. It's going to be revalidated, and then that score will count to give credit in 5.0. And so the answer is yes. There are some candidates. When this policy goes into effect on May 1st, we have 11 candidates that are going to be ARE complete that were not ARE complete today. All they have to do is just wait until the policy goes into effect. And basically what's happening is they're getting credits for something that they took that has since expired. They're done.
That's incredible. I bet that opening up that email was probably just like, what? Thank you, universe.
Yeah. And it's great you mentioned email, because NCARB has already done that. We have already sent emails to all of the different candidates with their situation. And so we're trying to notify you. So I guess that's the other plug. I will say, if you have not kept an updated email address on file in your NCARB record, that's how we communicate with you. So please keep your information updated in your NCARB record, because we will tell you specifically how you're being impacted by this policy change or any other policy change in the future.
Yeah, that's important to make sure that you're diving into it. Who knows? Maybe you could be a licensed architect next month or in 2 months. So you did say it goes into effect May 1st.
Correct. It goes into effect May 1st. Our board of directors actually passed this policy officially at their January board meeting. We needed a couple of months to do some implementation work, obviously, but we didn't also want to wait until everything was perfect and we had all 14 of these jurisdictions in line, because why wait a year when this can impact thousands of candidates right away? So the reason that we picked that April, it's the end of April day, so it goes into effect on May 1st, is what that means is no 5.0 scores will expire. Because if you go all the way back in history to when 5.0 began and you add 5 years to it, plus you add the 18-month rolling clock extension everybody received during the pandemic, that put us at May 1st. So we wanted to basically beat that date from a policy perspective.
I think it's going to be really helpful to so many people. And again, I have had mothers or people who have wanted to be mothers and parents too, but I think it really does affect the mothers who, I recently interviewed a woman who had to take off 2 years because she had a really hard pregnancy and literally physically couldn't go in and take the exam. So I think this is a really amazing opportunity for a lot of people who were kind of held back by that deadline.
Right. I mean, there's all kinds of life circumstances that we understand, life circumstances can get in the way. And whether you had children, you have aging parents that all of a sudden, you just have to take care of parents. There's so many different factors. And we used to do, as you know, rolling clock extensions. So people could come and get a rolling clock extension, but for birth or adoption of a child, it was only 6 months, right? And it seemed well, that's pretty quick, depending on the situation. For some people, that's great. 6 months totally worked. For other people, it didn't. Policy things that was debated as well. Should we just extend extensions? Should we keep doing 5 years, but should we just give people longer extensions? And we were well, why? Why are we going to try to keep this pressure on you, but yet then give you extensions? Why not just remove it and say, okay, it's all based on exam version. You're good to go. Yeah.
And I can imagine that would even add that pressure, because it's well, what if they don't accept my extension and whatnot? So I think the way it's done now, it's easy. It's easier to understand. I think that's really all the questions that I had specifically from people wondering. I think the other one I was just thinking of is I believe it said an 18-month rollover period when a new division would start and an old one. Is that correct? So you get to almost choose which one you want to go into. Is that right?
Again, that's kind of based on history. So NCARB has promised this. We have promised that before we ever launch 6.0, we're going to give candidates at least an 18-month notice. And like I said, I think candidates should be paying attention in the 2025 year, because I think that's when NCARB is going to make this announcement. We're going to say, hey, ARE 6.0 is coming, and it's very likely going to launch at this time frame. right? That doesn't mean that 5.0 will be turned on when 6.0 launches. And that some other people will get really freaked out. Let's be honest. They'll get freaked out about it because they're like, oh my gosh, NCARB's turning off 5.0. But that's not what we're saying. Again, historically, NCARB has done at least a 12-month. When we transitioned from 3.1 to 4.0, we gave 12 months of what we call dual delivery. Both exams are running. Candidates can test. You can't test in both at the same time, but you can keep testing in 3.1 or you can jump over to 4.0. Did the exact same thing when we went from 4.0 to 5.0. You can keep testing in 4.0 or now you could jump over to 5.0. I guarantee we'll do the same thing when we get into 6.0. Like, okay, here's 5.0. What do you want? Do you want to keep going and try to get done, or would you rather jump into 6.0? The new policy, though, I think will help candidates make that choice because, to be honest, if you are a 4.0, you're using 4.0 exams to get 5.0 credits, you will want to get done in 5.0 because if you jump to 6.0, that 4.0 score doesn't give you any credit in 6.0. So there will be a moment where, again, NCARB will help you understand the transition, but every candidate's going to have to make the best decision for them. And we tend to give you the choice on how to do that. We're not going to force you. If you want to say, yeah, I'm done with 5.0, I want to jump to the 6.0 model, great. We're not going to stop you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because if you are maybe studying for the exams, but you haven't quite yet taken one and 6.0 is released, take 6.0 so that you can go into that one and the next one.